And good day to you, Willard Shepard. Willard Shepard Law and Media here on the Community News Network with In the Know. And we have a special guest with us today, the Miami-Dade County Commissioner who's done so much for our community and continues to do so. Kionne McGhee, thank you so much for coming to be with us today. And I'm always impressed with your enthusiasm for our community and where it all comes from. And so, first of all, before we address some of the matters down in the southern part of our county, first of all, I just want you to tell me about how you ended up in public service and your great story that from Howard University to Texas and back here to South Florida.
Well, first of all, Willard, let me just reach over the table and shake your hand and say thank you so much for all you've done, especially serving this great nation, making sure that our freedom remains and making sure that our families have a great place to grow up in. Secondly, let me also say thank you because for many years you have been the beacon of hope for many of us in our communities, especially who look like me and I look like you, and you've given us an opportunity to see ourselves on the lenses of television, and that's something that we cannot downplay, but we must always remind people of how much of a benefit that you have been to this great community. And lastly, let me just simply say to you, listen, I don't know where you find the time to do so much. You got Willard Shepard Law and Media. You are a veteran in the reserve with the Air Force. You're helping individuals get into school through ROTC. So I'm taking my hat off to you and I'm asking the question, where do you find the time to do so much to make sure that this community is serviced and also grow with its benefits that that you have given us to hold so dearly? The question about how I became involved in public service, to be honest with you, I think I was born in it. I often say to folk, they say, well, how did you get involved? I think I was born in it. I was born in the housing projects to a mother who eventually raised 6 of us. From there, I was actually placed in special education. From there, I was able to find myself on the other side of the law. And then from there, I found myself asking the question, when and where will the change actually happen? And I do recall one day sitting in a room and speaking with my mother and speaking with other folk, and a phrase came out of that conversation. And the phrase was that the ingredients to your success are found within your struggles. From there, that became the light bulb to remind me that I was actually born into public service because public service is who I am. Everything about me that you see is basically a combination of some sort of public service that actually helped me get to where I am. Whether it was public assistance, whether it was public schools, whether it was walking on a public sidewalk, whether it was playing on a public parks, everything about me says public. I have no choice but to give back to everybody who's coming behind me the very same things that so many before me gave to me.
Okay. And I appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much.
But they're true, right? They're not just kind, they're true.
Well, you and I live by the same motto. You heard me say this last week at a high school when we were giving out one of our Air Force scholarships, that those who toil in the darkness with dedication and determination are those who succeed when the lights come on and shine the brightest. And in these lights shining upon you, you're doing an incredible job of leadership, of setting an example for our young people and trying to provide opportunities. And to that point, I know you have a great concern about a place that's close to my heart, and that's Homestead Air Reserve Base.
Yes. Homestead Air Reserve Base, without a question, has always served as the economic engine of South Dade. Secondly, has always served as a place of protection and security for this great nation. As many people know, especially you, many of our fighter jets, many of our Air Force personnel are located there in the event that an emergency occurs. What we have heard lately, is the reality that there's a possibility that funding and mechanical engineers and possible jets may not be returning to the Homestead Air Reserve Base. That is of a major concern to me because right now I can tell you that we in the South, especially Miami-Dade County, we depend upon the Homestead Air Reserve Base to give us all of those things I've just mentioned. And for any reason that DC believes that the Homestead Air Reserve Base is not as important to this nation's defense or to the local economy, we have to challenge that because we know all too well what the Homestead Air Reserve Base provides for us here locally.
Okay. A short time ago, you were able to bring the air show there, and we want to show some pictures of the Thunderbirds out there racing across the sky and doing those types of things, Alex, while the commissioner and I continue our conversation. I'll make a strategic argument for you and saying just simply geographically where it's located and the threats that are posed from Latin America, the Caribbean, whether those be through drug trafficking, whether those be through other dictators that are to our southern border, that this is one of the most strategic places in the country where you would want a robust defense system.
Well, and look, you speak from experience. You have flown more than, dozens of sorties across Iraq during the Gulf War and making sure that our security was actually provided for. And so if there's anybody who understands that, it is you. Because you're a decorated veteran, you're a decorated airman, and you're someone who understands strategically where we must be at any given time. And so, of course, when there's a question, or even if it's simply a rumor, that there's a possibility of the air base, having to be or retrofitted for some other purpose, we have to answer that seriously. And that's why I push forth the urging to DC that they take this seriously. And we are actually right now reaching out to the different command staff across this great nation to remind them why the base is so important to our economy.
Yeah, and talk about that through the local economy that's there, not just right outside the base, but far beyond that in not just Homestead, but in your district and beyond.
Yeah, look, when we think of geographically the Air Reserve Base, we're talking about a base that houses the National Guard. We're talking about a base that actually allows for air shows to take place. We're talking about a base where individuals come and learn how to parachute and fly planes. So when they come, they purchase homes. When they come, they pay tolls. When they come, they pay fees. When they come, they make purchases that are usually otherwise not going to benefit us. But because they are actually able to buy these things and make these purchases, those extra dollars go into our coffers. Those coffers then are used to make sure there's no more potholes in our infrastructure and road, to make sure our trees are trimmed, to make sure that the small things that matter to us each and every day are actually taken care of.
We are at the time of year, I know it's very special for you in terms of we're going to these high school graduations, but that also means that our kids are not generally in school during the course of the summer, and that you've worked diligently to try to make sure they have opportunities for this summer. So for parents who are listening and kids who will see this across our community, tell me about the kinds of things that are out there, who you want them to reach out to get in contact, to take advantage of what you're doing.
Well, and great question, Willard. Let me just begin by saying that if you are a young man or a young woman out there in high school and you're looking for employment over the summer, contact my office and we will help you get the paperwork filled out so that you can apply and become successful in obtaining a summer job beginning at $13.99 an hour. You can contact my office from 9 to 5. That is District 9 at miamidade.gov, or you can say district9 at gmail.com, and we will assist you in filling out those applications. But it's important that we make sure that the young people are employed this summer, because if they're employed, then we don't have to worry about them more than likely out there doing something otherwise. Secondly, it also the fundings that we're actually providing to the young men and young women, during the summer, it allows for them to help with their future purchases, such as textbooks, clothes for back to school, helping with gas, helping with cell phone bills. So whatever the small things may be that they need, they are now in a position to grab a hold of a job that would allow for them to gain real life skills, financial skills, and also to help pay some of these bills that their parents otherwise would have to pay fully.
Okay. That might sound foreign to some families, but explain the importance of that, and you've lived this, to making sure that these 3 months are really vital, that there should really be no time off.
Right. Look, an idle mind becomes a place sometimes where individuals, their mental health can be challenged. And I found in my personal dealings is that when you keep yourself busy in a positive way, you serve as a benefit to the society as a whole. There's nothing better than working your way through the system, working your way through whatever challenges you may be going through. When you work your way through it, what ends up happening is it gives you a victor type of mentality. It makes you feel like you're contributing to a greater need, which in fact you are. So that's why I'm always preaching to everyone I see, especially young kids, 13 and above, is that we must find employment. They must obtain employment because it does something to the soul. A woman or a man who works for his or her food, works for his or her merchandise, is a man or a woman who's going to find happiness. And that's why I always implore any and everyone, find employment and you will find happiness and you will find appreciation.
I'm going to take you back to your experiences in Tallahassee and drawing up on our next topic in terms of what's happening across our state. This is scheduled to be the day when the governor is slated to announce his candidacy for the presidency of the United States. Unfortunately, several days ago, the NAACP has come out and basically put what the State Department does on a travel alert, travel warning, don't travel to this area, saying for minorities, for our LGBTQ community, not to come to our state because of what has transpired over the last year, year and a half, and recently during this legislative session. So first of all, how did we end up here? And what is your message to our community? Because we live here.
Yeah. Listen, I will begin by simply saying this. There are usually four pillars to any situation. And in this situation, we're talking about government, right? You have policy, you have people, you have politics, and at the end of the day, we have to understand the phrase. Policy, people, politics, and the phrase. We cannot get caught up in individuals who are creating certain phrases out there that will affect one group of people, that will cause uneasiness in areas of different cultures. Our reality is this. It's no different than when you flew those sorties to protect this great nation. When you were up in that sky, flying the fighter jet, you were not defending a race, a class of people, an ethnicity, or a gender. You were defending the United States of America. And if a person is within the United States of America, Willard Shepard defended that person's right by ensuring that the enemies did not or could not be in a position to come here and take away that freedom. If a person is here and they are working, contributing to our economy, contributing to our society in a positive way, no one, absolutely no one, should be in a position to alter their rights. The Constitution allows for fair and equal opportunities for all under this flag. If you are here and you are abiding by the rules and you are doing what it takes to move America forward, then I do not believe that any policy that contradicts that should stand.
Tell me, in terms of this, are you concerned that we're going to have our economy affected by conventions, other types of opportunities where we've been able to have tourists come, these types of things, that they choose to take their business other places?
Let's be absolutely clear. Policy dictates how individuals respond, especially in Florida. Florida is known for its agritourism. It's known for tourism. It's known for its sunshine, and it's known for providing an opportunity to great people to have a great time. Whenever there are policies out there that are contrary to what those items I've just mentioned stand for, we have to understand that there will be a cost to it. There's a cost to everything we do. There's a cost to the policies that have recently passed in the legislature. there are going to be people out there and organizations who are going to cancel their conventions that are slated to be here. The NAACP's position is one of longstanding since 1909. Their job, its job, is to ensure that the voices of those who have been left out, those who have had to fight through social justice in order to be heard, and those who are currently right now finding themselves fighting policies that are detrimental to both the mental aspect and the social aspect. Their job is to stand up and recognize and bring attention to those particular policies that are causing harm. Now, what I am also saying is that this should not just simply be an issue for African Americans, Hispanics, or the LGBTQ community. This should be a fight for human rights. And when we're speaking about human rights, we're talking about something that transcends race, ethnicity, sex, and gender. We must be as one voice and saying, if my brother is being discriminated against based upon one of those four, then all of us are being discriminated against. Because at any given time, so long as the issues are aimed at this person, there's nothing to prevent it from being aimed at the second person, and then from the second person to the third person, and from the third person to the fourth person. And what eventually happens is we all find ourselves on an island trying to defend against policies that are detrimental to both the nation and ourselves. And so I sum up by simply saying this has to be an effort where all of us come together and actually say no to the policies that are affecting one group of people, that's actually affecting two group of people, that are actually affecting any group of people in this great nation.
Do you have a concern on what's happened on our educational system, especially at the collegiate level? I saw earlier today that the young woman who delivered the poem at the last inauguration in Washington, that some of her works were be removed from some of our universities.
Elections have consequences. And this is why individuals have to get out and vote, right? It's no longer that we can stand back and look upon this as simply, it is your issue, it is the African-American issue, it is the Hispanic issue, it is the Anglo-American issue, it is the Asian issue. No, these are real issues. The First Amendment, these are issues that go to the heart and the core of who we are as a people. To refuse to allow for history books to reflect what we know they to be, it's also a disservice to the very people who need to have a balanced aspect of what history is really about. Giving history out in a single style, in a single set, doesn't help us at all. We've always been a nation where we can actually understand and have teachable moments and come together and disagree or agree to disagree, but do so in a very sensible way. Not providing the truth or not providing facts to the future leaders of this great nation will harm us eventually, because their minds at this particular moment, they're able to interpret and understand. But if we do not give them the truth, the facts of how and why America is so great, we are hurting America. And I truly believe that. I truly believe if we do not show both sides of the coin, we're only hurting ourselves in the future. Because those young men and young kids and young women who are in the classrooms today will tomorrow become our leaders. And if they're ever on a world stage and someone asks them about their history, they're going to find themselves in a very bad situation. And that's why I am in full support of having history taught the way history happened.
I use this analogy to what you're addressing is, I was, and this is what makes our community so fantastic. I was in the lab to get some blood drawn, and they were running late. Right. And people became somewhat frustrated, and a woman came out from behind the counter and said, "Oh, we have a problem back here, and we're short-staffed." And all of the people that were in there all exhibited their frustration but those who spoke English were like, "Oh no, get out of here!" And the people that were speaking Spanish were like, "Señorita, go!" And the people who were speaking Creole were yelling, but they were all saying the same thing.
Yes.
And it was a fantastic display of the diversity in our community, but being united behind one item.
Yeah.
Do you think what's happening here concerning not teaching some of these things is going to put us in rewind from people of our different cultures instead of unifying us, dividing people further?
America is a place that could be defined with this phrase, we the people. The actions that we're seeing do not reflect we the people. The actions that we're seeing is those people. That's the action. America was never designed to be those people. America was designed to be we the people. And when you have policies that create a wedge from we and the people to create those people, you are undoubtedly setting America back decades. This is no longer, this is no longer a fight simply for a book to be placed in the library, an author to be heard, or a group of people to be appreciated. This is a fight for the soul of America. That's what we're fighting for. The soul of America is we the people. You take we the people away from the soul of America, you have an anarchy. You have those people. Those two things cannot coexist with we the people. They are adverse to one another. And when people pit those people versus we the people against one another, we create a soulless country. Something that I can possibly go on the record and say that people like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abe Lincoln, Kennedy, that right now, Dr. King, that right now causes, if they were still alive, will cause them heartache because of what they stood for and what they fought for. And it was never those people. It was always we the people. We rule together. We love together. And we push forward together. And that's what it's all about. And that's what makes up the American experience, not those people.
In terms of division, and this is a great concern of mine, in a practical and real world, as of the 1st of July in our state, a person will be able to carry a weapon with no training, no background training whatsoever at all. I have a huge concern about our stand your ground law and the way that the public perceives it. And when you combine these two together, I know you do all that you can to try to stop, and have our communities be safe and stop violence in our communities. But with the road rage we see, other types of things, this, to I think any objective observer, appears to be a dangerous mix. And every law enforcement officer I've talked to is concerned not only for us, but for their own safety.
As a legislator, I said on the record that we have moved from an objective standard to a subjective standard in interpreting danger. We were once a society that said, you have to protect your castle. As a man, as a woman, your castle is where you protect. You are allowed to hold your castle in the highest esteem and protect it by any means necessary, whether it's by gun, whether it's by other projectiles, but you had a right to protect that home. They have taken that protection that was once given to a house, to your castle, and they made it a portable right. So now it's no longer just to the house, it's now placed within your hands. So you can literally leave your home, walk into the streets, and if you think, that's the new standard.
Reasonable person believes.
If you
Great bodily harm or reasonable death.
If you believe or if you think that you are about to be harmed, or a third person is about to be harmed, or property is about to be damaged, you can now take the same right that you once had that only applied to your home. Now you can take that onto the streets of America and use what you think as a legal basis to injure or kill or destroy property because you thought. And that's what stand your ground is. It's a legal basis that gives the subjective approach, the subjective backing of the law to the individual who's carrying it out. And to the police officers out there and other law enforcement officials and elected officials, if the person is arrested and the person claims stand your ground, and the court finds otherwise, and the court finds that stand your ground was justified at the time, now the police department is on the hook for a lawsuit, and elected officials will also be on the hook for whatever punishment that may be handed down, because the law now incorporates those defenses. And if those defenses are not appreciated in the eyes of the law enforcement community, what ends up happening is now the person may have a lawsuit against the department. So when you think about stand your ground, you're talking about something really serious that can create and escalate wars in the streets. Now that you have stand your ground, and now that you have carrying concealed weapons without a permit, you don't know who is armed.
And that's why I believe that it is going to take I had a fear. I believed that person had a weapon, and take the violence and open the door for more of it. And that's heartbreaking and saddening, and I'm concerned about that for our community.
No, and we should. Absolutely we should, especially the little kids out there who simply want to play with the fire hydrant and have water in the summertime, and you have two individuals who honestly believe one another are poses a threat to one another, and they get into a shootout up the street, and one of the stray bullets hits one of the little kids who out playing jump rope while in the summertime and playing in the water. The real issue here also, Willard, is that when you see this in reality, not in theory, but when you see this in reality and this plays out, it's going to be a bad day for us. Because it's tough for dead people to speak and defend themselves. So now it allows for people to walk out the courtroom with a not guilty verdict. And it's going to force people now, in order to justify their stand your ground defense, to ensure that the person that is shot dies. I am one of the most vocal defenders of the Second Amendment. I am. I also defend the First Amendment, Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. I defend all the amendments in the Constitution. But for those out there who are going to use one of the amendments as a basis to make their defense and build it upon a statutory language, like stand your ground, I challenge them to really look at the amendment that they are making their premise on. It was all about the militia. That's what the Second Amendment was about. It was all about making sure that, it's well regulated, not for an individual to walk around with a firearm hidden inside of their pants and walk up to another person and says, hey, I think that guy fits the bill. I think I'm in danger. Let me pull out my firearm just to scare him or her. Now you're brandishing your firearm. And now the other person sees you. What do you think they're going to do?
Let's hope that we have people who are able to remain calm.
Yeah.
And that this doesn't increase violence in our community.
We not only hope,
Yes.
but we're going to pray.
Yes, sir. We always do that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, always great to see you.
Come on, brother.
Thank you for
Always.
coming here on the Community News Network. And we continue to admire what you're doing in our community. And thank you for being with us. And we will see you next time on In the Know.